they're not making millions out of me.
Hello, Robin. You all right, mate?
Hi, how you doing? You all right, Matt?
Hey, man. Yeah. Robin, a very good friend of mine from the mighty Cosmograf. New album out, 26th.
Yeah, March 26th.
I'll see if
got
we
a
can get this
bit to
edited
go now, so
we'll get it edited before then. So, there's another podcast where Robin talks about a lot about Cosmograf and his musical adventures and career, and he's someone who's built it up sort of pretty much yourself, haven't you? It's been pretty much all you.
Yeah, it's been sort of like a one-man band, really, I suppose. Initially started out with a record label, but it didn't really work out that well, and so gone from sort of self-release to a record label, then back to self-release, but now have built it into a little bit more of a fully fledged label in its own right. Yeah.
The controversial clickbaitery title of this discussion is should you put your music on Spotify?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. And I sort of did a bit of a semi-rant, I suppose, about that yesterday on Facebook.
It's great, mate. It was really great, actually, what you did, because it was really honest, and a lot of people don't give out numbers. They don't. People will.
Yeah, I think you've got to do that.
Yeah.
What I'm a real exponent of, I think, what I really like to do is I just want to have an honest discussion with the fans about the numbers, basically, because I know a lot of bands are embarrassed by the whole thing, sort of sharing that level of detail. But I think it's important. I think you need to sort of tell people how it is, and they can decide themselves whether they want to support you or not, given the facts,
So I've got my Spotify app open, so I'm happy to divulge our adventures in Spotify. I don't think I've got yearly figures for some reason. I don't know why.
You couldn't. Yeah, it took me a while to find them, I have to say. But
I don't know where they are. But
you have to go to a report and download them. But they're quite they're quite obscure. Yeah.
I mean, so in terms of the way I look at Spotify is that the algorithm will push you out to similar artists. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you were saying 30% of your streams come from Spotify's algorithmic playlists.
That's right, yeah.
The algorithmic playlists seem to be kinder to some bands than others. So if you're quite similar to another band, but isn't it great that your sort of Cosmograph stuff's going out to Opeth fans, probably?
Exactly that, yeah.
So as far as I can see, that's free PR.
Yeah, I mean that's the view I take on it. I mean, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. You can say, well, Spotify have taken all my content and they're giving it to people for free. Yeah, but you've got to own this now, I think. And whilst the situation isn't ideal in terms of getting payment, I think you've got to use the situation and say, well, how on earth else? What other vehicles have I actually got? Being a small independent musician or a small label for doing PR, and you've got to spend a huge amount of money to get that sort of level of engagement and followers on your, you can't do that on Facebook. You'd spend hundreds of thousands to get that same sort of engagement. I mean, we had 285,000 streams last calendar year.
That's great, isn't it?
30% of those, as I said, came from algorithmic, the Spotify algorithmic playlist. So
I'm just looking at my one for the playlist, but
that is going out to fans that haven't listened to your music before.
So that's really good. There's the Spotify radio stuff. So. Yeah, I mean, it'd be lovely if they paid lots of money, and it
would, yeah.
But that's not going to happen.
But the other aspect is you can say, well, they're making millions, but they're not making millions out of me.
Yeah, they're definitely not making millions.
Definitely not making millions out of me, because no one is. But you, all right, they might be making millions out of musicians in general, but. I'm not making millions out of it, but they're not making millions out of me either. So I'm just sort of using them to get where I want to be for free. I'm using their facilities that they're kindly providing, and using and abusing them to sort of reach a new audience. And that's the sort of way I'm looking at it, and I'm sort of fairly happy with that arrangement.
I'd say that there's you can sit around and moan about it. And I think but rather than it's not going to go away. It's not going to change because an independent artist refuse to put the music on Spotify, I think they're punching themselves in a wound that's already open.
Absolutely.
You're already suffering by, Spotify being there, and it's just great that. I mean, as a punter, I love Spotify. I think it's brilliant. I like Spotify. I like Spotify playlists. I listen to most music on Spotify. It's just convenient. So for me, as a punter, it's very, very, very convenient. So what I'd say is that I believe there are people who listen to music on Bandcamp, which is great. That's the best one for me. There's people who buy direct from websites, which is very good for you, isn't it? You do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There's people who buy from record shops. There's people who buy vinyl. There's people who go on Tidal. There's people who go on Spotify. There's people who download legally, and there's people who listen on YouTube.
Yeah,
you've got to be everywhere to engage with all those people, because if you actually want to go out on tour, I was talking to Robin about this before, but it's thing about of having, if you can do 4 UK tour dates and sell them out with 200, 300 people, then you're in the game. You're off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do. And the only way to keep going like that is to engage with as many people as possible. And so I think if Spotify gives you an opportunity to people to hear your music who've never heard it before, well, that's pretty cool, isn't it? I thought
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's basically what my post was about yesterday. And then something just popped up this morning, which was just as relevant. Prog magazine shared the story of this guy that was he was a drummer in Indonesia, and he basically couldn't afford a drum kit. And he literally made a drum kit out of old paint tins and dustbin lids.
Good on him.
And he did a cover of Dream Theater's. I can't remember the track, but it was a Dream Theater track, and he got it onto YouTube somehow. And Mike Portnoy sort of picked it up, and they were basically trying to put together a campaign for to get him a proper drum kit. But
cool.
the nub of it was that you want your music to be heard by people like that. It's you got to realise that it's not everybody that can afford to buy the CD or even pay for the post to get it shipped across. So
no. There's also lots of things like there's lots of people in Brazil. There was a fantastic music country. There's lots of people really into music, but it's not a great place to send merch to. It's quite we've
lost a few going to Mexico because we've got quite a big.
South America's quite a difficult one. Which there's a lot of people who definitely like your band and sort of our sort of stuff as well in Mexico. And it's a great country and South America. In general, is a great place for music, like Rock in Rio and all that. And I'd love to go and play there, but it's not a great place to get merch to. But it's a huge. Brazil's massive on Spotify. Brazil,
if you look at that's right. Look at the audience figures on trawl through those, and there's some massive. I think the biggest streamed city that we've got on our books is Mexico City.
Yeah, so that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, that's weird. It's just strange, but you say you won't get any orders from there because it's. For one, it's a fairly poor country, but two, it's like you say, it's a complete nightmare for getting merch in. So
and also, it's going to be a while before to get to tour somewhere like that. I mean, I don't even think Stephen Wilson or anyone like that's touring.
No, the cost must be massive. Yeah,
quite a difficult one to get out to. So, but Spotify, that you're connecting with a massive audience. I think Stephen Wilson's streaming numbers are massive in Brazil. Santiago, Mexico City. His cities, his biggest cities are those sort of places. So, and it's another way to reach more people. And I think if you reach more people, they'll tell more people, and the word of mouth is so key to underground artists, isn't it?
Yeah, and it sort of comes back as well. It's like a sort of standing wave, because having that audience out there is something that then convinces audiences here that you're actually something to be listened to. The more people that listen to you, the more it sort of encourages other people to listen to you as well. So
the horrible phrase, social proof, that but it's if you go onto somebody's Spotify profile or their social media and there's nothing there and they've got 5 fans, you're going to think
they're not a big deal. I don't want to listen to
it. So I think if you go onto somebody's social media or Spotify and there's 5,000-10,000 people there, at least they've got a sort of foothold at the bottom of the world of tinterweb music. I mean, for us, in terms, Bandcamp's the one for us that we've done. We've got our core audience on, but the thing for us is like we're very lucky to have a really loyal small audience, which is fantastic. But to be able to tour on the next sort of step along, we'd need to be able to get to that sort of 200-300 people point. We're in London. We're pretty much kind of there. We're about 200. We can pull about 200 in London. So we can like sell out the Black Heart. We can sell out almost. We've got 3/4 in. Almost sold out the Lexington. Got 180, 200 at the Lexington. But and like Riverside were playing, so it was a tough sell. That was
that was huge. Now aren't they, Riverside? Yeah,
and like Manchester, I think we can do 100 or so. So we're getting there. If we can do Bristol or Cardiff and somewhere in Scotland as well, that's a 4-date tour for every album, and then we're in the game. And to do that, to make it work, I want to go out and play live with the projections and and all the really good sound and give people a really good night. I mean, this isn't it's not about making loads of money. It's about trying to give people the best possible experience and doing shows that I want. We've been doing this for 10 years. To be honest, we've done halfway down the bill on every festival to go in. You know what I mean? We've played every festival, and it's weirdly this is the first year we've ever been asked to headline festivals. This is the first year we've ever had. I've had 2 promoters come, small festivals, but ask us to headline them, which is weird for me because for years I said to Kev the other day, I used to get out the old list of festivals and email them. This about 5-6 years ago, and email them, can I come and play your festival? We're not shit. And it's like we used to do that for years. We used to go out and put that list through, and this is the first year that we haven't really tried to book anything, obviously because of the craziness out there. But this is the first time we've had people come to us and offer us headline slots, and that's weird. But I suppose once you can sell out to do 200 tickets in London, people go, oh yeah, they could be a headline band. They could be they could be. Because there's not that many bands that can sell 200 tickets in London. That's quite a hard thing to do. Yeah. It sounds hard, but it is hard. You know what I mean? So I think you've got one of the problems you've got a lot of labels are going to have is because bands' income streams aren't just, physical product. It's merch, it's live, there's so much going on, isn't there? There's so much.
That's right. Yeah.
There's so many different income streams, publishing, licensing, all that stuff. And monetizing fan relationships through Patreon and things like that. It's a horrible turn of phrase, monetizing fan relationships, but it's ultimately I think your audience wants to support you. If they choose to support you, you're there you can say, well, okay, we'll do something that hopefully and I don't believe in. I think the most important thing is the integrity of making sure that you give people a good experience, give them the highest quality. So you're kind to people, you make an effort, and you treat people with kindness and respect. Yeah.
You got to nurture that relationship, I think. And like I said this morning, I think the decision about how far they support you and how they support you is largely up. You've got to leave that up to them. You can't sort of make these decisions like, well, we're not putting any of our music on digital, we're not putting it on streaming. That's up to them. They've got to have access. First of all, they've got to have access to your music in whatever form that takes. I'm not saying put it on every single platform, but you've got to put it on a platform that's convenient for them to access and listen to. Then they can decide whether, to the extent that they, how much extent they want to support you. And I think that's a fair way to do it.
Do you remember in the old days when people used to put 10-second snippets of things on?
Yeah. There's still bands doing that. I'm not saying any names, but
it is 10 seconds of half a riff, and it's like, well, can't really tell if it's any good. Because I think the battle for ultimately, and just to draw things, because we'll keep it fairly short today, but just to draw things to a conclusion, I think the problem musicians face is obscurity, not piracy or streaming.
I think you're right. Yeah, totally.
The hard thing is to get people to even know who you are.
Yeah,
and that's
it's just. I mean, how many times have you done it? I'm sure you're the same. Is you're looking through Facebook or whatever, and you see about 5 or 6 just because of the way we're tuned into different groups and different pages. You'll see 5 or 6 bands adverts go by, like listen to this, download this, listen to this track, How many do you actually click on?
Very little.
Virtually none.
And because it has to be, it has to be something you probably know already.
Yeah, we have to be. There's something else. There's another factor involved. It's not. You won't just click at it just because someone says click and listen to this.
I think the best way. Sorry, the best way for people to find bands is word of mouth. Your mate.
Yeah.
Well, if my mate told me about saying, sorry, carry on. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, I was going to say you've even got to be told to. Other people have got to tell you it's good enough to listen to. You've got to have some sort of validation there, haven't you? Yeah, before you'll actually sort of invest the time to have a listen. Like a friend's got to say to it, you need to check these guys out, or someone that whose opinion you respect has got to say to you, go and click on that link, go and check these guys out. And I think that's the moment you make the switch, don't you? To sort of at least invest a little bit of time in listening.
Because as a musician, you're up against the complete recorded catalogue of everything.
Yeah.
But I find, there's the Beatles. It's not like there was a physical limit when I used to work in record shops. I did that for 10 years. And there's a physical limit of the amount of products on the shelf, right? But now you're up against everything.
That is a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. Like you say, you walk into the record shop, and if it was your local shop, it would be a hassle to sort of get a bigger selection by going to the next biggest town. Yeah. But it cost you money to get on the bus or whatever it was and go. So you've got to buy something from that rack, haven't you?
But now you're up against.
Now you can get everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Every Beatles album, every King Crimson album, every Peter Gabriel album, every Mogwai album, every Slayer album, and if people, that's what you've got to basically say to yourself: is your music worth a punter's time over the Beatles? That's a bit of an ask, isn't it? You know what I mean? So you've really got to put your work in to try and develop. And if someone will listen to your music on Spotify or wherever, I'm just glad they do, and just glad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's not perfect, but it's good enough for me at the moment. I think it's too easy to be really, really negative about it when that isn't really the problem. It's not really Spotify that's the problem. It's like you say, it's actually getting people invested in what you're doing, basically.
I remember 20 years ago, I moved to London 20 years ago this year, and I used to play an indie band, and we used to go and this just before we actually moved to London, but we used to play the Bull and Gate once every 3 or 4 months to 4 people. And that was our audience, and those audience it was all our mates, and then occasionally we get a minibus of people down from Northamptonshire to London to see us, and that would be your entire audience, and then to have the luxury of being able to have thousands of people to hear you constantly, and through no, just that, to have that ability to hear you, because when I first came to London, until we put out the first Fish, I was doing the sort of solo stuff, I was doing the Fish and the Dead stuff, and I was playing in indie bands that never really got anywhere. And then I put the first Fish and the Dead EP up on Bandcamp, and 200 people listened to it. And that was like, that's amazing. I don't believe it. But everyone takes it for granted that's possible to do that now.
That's right.
At the time, it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this works. I can't believe that hundreds of people listening to my band. And it was carried on ever since then. And we've managed to sort of claw our way into the small sort of cult fan base. But how we would have done it without the internet, I think would have been, unless you're like a Mogwai or someone where what they did was really self-organised and have their own label and really make it happen. But we didn't have the stuff or the knowledge or the.
I don't think many people do. I mean, I don't have those sort of that skill set really or access to it. And I mean, some of the achievements, PR-wise, that some of the little smaller bands are making now are incredible. I mean, I'm seeing what bands like the Anchoress are doing, with their campaign and
the top 20. I mean, in the last few months.
It's like a who's who of reviews. I mean, how on earth did they get access to that level of a review? It's brilliant, but it's
like Mogwai had a number 1 album, didn't they?
Yeah,
number 1. And it's like I always thought about like, I mean, I've always loved Mogwai, but I've always thought they were a sort of band that me and my mates knew about, but I didn't realise they were that big. And that it's like Mogwai had a number 1 album, Stephen Wilson was top 5, Anchoress top 20. I mean, there's been loads of bands that I know or have become part of the world we're in, having albums come out and do well in the charts, which is amazing. So it just shows you that And obviously, when people get into the charts and get into the, it goes slightly more mainstream, and they get their music gets recommended to more people via the algorithms on Spotify and YouTube, and that audience grows. And I think that's you've got to think long term. You can't think, I've sold 200 CDs, we're done.
We're done. Yeah, and certainly I know people like that as well that are quite happy to do that. They just do their thing, put a CD out. They do exactly the same thing every single release. And that's a trap. I think you've got to, I think you've got to try and break out the box a little bit more and do something, take it on another stage, take it on a little bit more, just do something different on the next one that you hadn't tried before.
Right. Should we wrap up?
Yeah.
Right, brilliant. Thank you so much, Robin. And thanks for answering that question. I'm going to stop recording. Robin, tell us about your new album. Tell us about the album.
It's Rapture Pond, and it's coming out on March the 26th.
Good.
And it has 5 tracks about time. How's that? Nice and brief.
It's got I've seen you've been getting really good reviews and really pleased.
Yeah, they're coming out now, so that's good. Yeah, it's always a worry, isn't it? But yeah, it's looking good. Yeah.
Nothing makes me happier than seeing my friends doing well, and I'm really pleased for you, mate.
Good.
So, all right, we'll stop this now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.